The winning blueprint presents.
Draft Zone.
Welcome to the Draft Zone. I'm your host, Lou. Thank you for joining me. This is the draft game. Here with the New Orleans Saints, who hold the 15th pick in the 2013 NFL Draft. And what the draft game is a look back at the draft and its history over the last 13 seasons. And we take a look at a specific pick and a specific team. And in this case, we're talking about the New Orleans Saints. And we're talking about the 15th overall pick in the NFL Draft. And what we want to do is kind of look at the history of the Saints over the last 13 years and look at the 15th pick over that same span, grade it out. Look at the players selected by the Saints in the first round. Look at the players selected at the 15th overall pick and grade them out using a baseball grading scale. With those grades given out, we'll average them together, and the baseball grading scale is a single, double, triple, home run, and the occasional strikeout. Get an aggregate score and use that to try to help us figure out what the New Orleans Saints might do with the 15th overall pick in this year's draft. Now, of course, the past cannot directly project what the future may hold for you, but the past does give us an indication as to what might happen and what usually happens at this pick. So we'll look back at the history of this pick, number 15. We'll look back at the Saints' history over that same span, grade it out, and see what it gives us. I'll be using this spreadsheet that you see in front of you as a rubric. Every single first-round selection made over the last 13 years in the draft is on this sheet. And I'll be using that sheet to look over the number 15 pick, and some of the Saints picks will be in this sheet as well. And so we'll go over all of it to analyze. So without any further ado, I'll start at 2000 and work my way up to the present, looking at the number 15th overall selection in the draft and grade out each player selected at that pick in each year. So we start at 2000, and you look at the 15th pick overall, and it's the cornerback Deltha O'Neal. And I always like saying his name for some reason. I don't know why. Deltha O'Neal. You don't see many Delthas walking around now, do you? He had a very productive career. At his peak, this guy was an All-Pro and a Pro Bowler. And so I really liked Deltha O'Neal. I thought he was a very athletic corner that could run. He had a very serviceable career in this league with the Denver Broncos, with the Cincinnati Bengals. I think Deltha O'Neal at his peak was a really good cornerback. And so he was solid in this league. I like Deltha O'Neal a lot. Thought he had a productive career. He's a double. You look at 2001. Wow. Memories. Rod Gardner, receiver out of Clemson, drafted by the Washington Redskins at the number 15 pick. In Washington, they called him 50-50. And you never want that name unless it means that there's a 50-50 chance of you coming down with a jump ball 60 yards down the field. But this was every pass. 5 yards down the field, 2 yards down the field, 50 yards down the field. His hands weren't the best is what I'm trying to say. Didn't always catch it when he was supposed to. Lacked concentration. Had all the physical tools. You're talking about a 6'1", 6'2" receiver that could jump out of any stadium. I mean, the guy could get up. He could run. That wasn't a question either. He just never had the concentration that you needed at the wide receiver position. So Wyatt Gardner was a guy that was average to below average his entire career. Wyatt Gardner is a single in this league. You look at 2002. 15th overall selection goes to the Tennessee Titans, who selected defensive tackle out of Tennessee, Albert Haynesworth. Man, this guy, to me, was an enigma his entire career. And I never really could understand why Albert Haynesworth didn't just want to be the best. He'd say it, but I don't think he ever actually meant it. I think he just actually wanted the best payday that was physically possible. And that's fine too. I mean, everyone doesn't have the self-motivation and drive to be the best. And that was his problem to me. Albert Haynesworth was not self-motivated. When it was time for a contract, when it was a contract year, he was motivated. And when he knew he had to play his best to get paid, he played his best. His 2 best seasons were leading up to his contracts. And that's when you got the best of Albert Haynesworth. Once he got his money, he wasn't motivated anymore. And that was the story of his career. Albert Haynesworth was a guy that could have been a home run. Should have been at least a triple. Can't even give him a double because of the off-the-field shenanigans coupled with the lack of success on the field. Albert Haynesworth is a single. And it's a shame because the guy had home run talent. But that's what happens when laziness and a lack of self-drive meet each other. You get Albert Haynesworth and you get a single in 2002. You look at 2003. Jerome McDougal, defensive lineman, defensive tackle. Short career. Nothing yielded from it. You know how I am about longevity. You know how I am about productivity. You got neither from Jerome McDougal. Hence, out! Strikeout for Jerome McDougal in 2003. You look at 2004. Michael Clayton. Receiver out of LSU, drafted by the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Man, I tell you what. He fooled me. And you fooled me once, shame on you. You won't fool me twice. After Michael Clayton, I was wary of every LSU receiver that came out into the draft. In the first round especially. Because Michael Clayton burst onto the scene. Rookie season, over 1,100 yards rushing. I remember he catches a football. Helmet comes flying off. He's not touchdown. He gets up. He runs for a touchdown. He gets in the end zone. He's dancing. And I'm like, man, this guy's a beast. Yeah, for one season. Flash in the pan. 1 year wonder. Never had a season anything remotely close to that. And that was Michael Clayton in a nutshell. 1 year of solid production. Never was the same again. Now, I don't know what happened after that rookie season, but he was not the same. He's a single in this league. You look at 2005. In the 15th overall selection is Derek Johnson, linebacker out of Texas. He's been a really good linebacker in this league. Drafted by the Kansas City Chiefs. Has spent his whole entire career with the Chiefs. I like Derek Johnson a lot. He's a sideline guy. He's been extremely productive throughout his career. He's a double right now. You look at 2006 in the 15th overall selection, Ty Hill. Whoa. I remember when this guy came out of Clemson, I thought he was going to be the next big thing at the cornerback position. He was drafted by the St. Louis Rams. I couldn't have been further from the truth. I was so far off on this one. His career spanned about a good 3 seasons, if that. He never amounted to anything in this league. Ty Hill was an absolute out in this league. He's a strikeout. Never produced. And the speed and the athleticism never matched his play on the field. It just never materialized. You look at 2007, the 15th overall selection. Lawrence Timmons, linebacker, Pittsburgh Steelers, out of Florida State. He's been good. Ever since the Steelers have given him the responsibility of starting on their defense, He's produced. He's been a solid linebacker, a guy you can depend on to be in a lineup and play. He's physical. I like Lawrence Timmons a lot. He's a double right now in the Pittsburgh Steelers organization. You look at 2008, 15th overall selection, tackle Brendan Albert out of the University of Virginia. He's been really solid. And when he sees extremely good talent across from him, he struggles a bit. Very athletic guy that can move his feet, but not fast enough to be elite at the left tackle position. But he's good. He's solid. He's better than most left tackles. He's just not in that upper echelon. Hence, he's a double. You look at 2009. Brian Cushing, linebacker out of SC. Solid linebacker. He's been really good at times. Had the suspension for PEDs. Got injured in 2012 towards ACL. So when he's on the field, he's extremely good. When he's off it, like most players, you can't produce. So I'm in between here because in a short career, he's been really good. But then you got the year where he got suspended for PEDs. Wasn't as productive. You got 2012. Got injured. So the numbers there aren't what you would like them to be, of course. But sandwiched in between those years are really good. We're talking about all-pro type of seasons. So he's a double. Because you got 4 years, but you got 2 years of extreme production and 2 years of little to no production. So he's a double. You look at 2010. 15th overall selection goes to the New York Giants, who select, of all positions, a defensive end. Who would have guessed? South Florida defensive end Jason Pierre-Paul. Sounds very French. Jason Pierre-Paul. Oui, oui. This guy is extremely athletic. If you remember Jason Pierre-Paul coming into the draft and coming into the league, he's infamous for the backflip tape on YouTube where this guy is just backflipping over and over and over again. I mean, that shows you the athleticism from a 6'6", 6'7" guy. I mean, it's incredible to see him do as many backflips in a row. And this guy's like 275 pounds. I mean, to see a guy be able to do that over and over again nonstop at his size, amazing. It just tells you what type of an athlete he is. And he came into the league. And that 1 year of production that he had in 2011 kind of skews his numbers. You look at him and you say, man, this guy's a beast. But if you look at his first season, a modest year, maybe 5.5, 6.5 sacks. Then you look at 2011, he explodes for 19.5, comes back in 2012, gives you another 6.5 sacks. So what is this guy? I'm not sure. You look at him and you're like, man, this guy's got to be a triple. But then you look at the numbers and you realize this guy really hasn't done anything outside of 2011. He's been solid. And you know what solid is? It's a double. So Jason Pierre-Paul is a double. You look at 2011. 15th overall selection goes to the Miami Dolphins, who select center Mike Pouncey out of the University of Florida. You're looking for a center. Why not draft a Pouncey? Those guys know how to get it done at the center position. His brother plays with the Steelers. He's really good. He plays for the Dolphins. He's really good. He's only been in the league 2 years, yet I already see the potential for a guy that's going to be an all-pro, a guy that's going to be a 10, 11-year veteran plus with about 7 or 8 or 9 Pro Bowl appearances, all-pros. This guy could be a home run in the next 2 seasons. He's a triple right now, is Mike Pouncey. You look at 2012 and the 15th overall selection. Seattle Seahawks draft Bruce Irvin. And when his pick was made, a lot of people said, why are the Seahawks drafting this guy? He's not a first-round talent. He can't play the run. Well, the Seahawks aren't asking him to play the run. They drafted him specifically to get after the quarterback. And without any starts, this guy got you 8 sacks. So what that says to me is he gets off the bus and gets you a sack. What more do you want? I mean, you want the guy to get after the quarterback, and that's what he's doing. 8 sacks, no starts, limited snaps. Third down, essentially a third down pass rusher gets you 8 sacks. The man's a menace. He's a double right now with the potential to exceed that in the next, I don't know, 2 or 3 years. So Bruce Irvin, West Virginia, outside linebacker / defensive end, he's a double in this league. So that's the draft history of the number 15 pick over the last 13 seasons. Not bad. Not bad at all. We'll tally it up. And when you do, you get a single. Even though there's some really good players there, no home runs. No home runs, and there's a couple of strikeouts. That always brings the average down. So now we'll look at the Saints and their draft history and see what they've done in the first round over the last 13 seasons. So now we're talking New Orleans Saints and their pick history. And we start with 2000. No first round pick. This was the Ricky Williams trade where Mike Ditka just basically traded for Ricky Williams and went home and golfed. So no first round pick in 2000. You look at 2001, Deuce McAllister. You draft this guy out of Ole Miss. He had a solid career for the New Orleans Saints. At his peak, he was an all-pro running back. Led the league in rushing. Look, Deuce McAllister was a power back that could run. Wasn't going to outrun a fast guy, but could run the football. I like Deuce McAllister a lot. He had one of the best names in the league. Of course, it's a nickname. But nonetheless, solid back, Deuce McAllister, 2001, he's a double. You look at 2002, Dante Stallworth, wide receiver out of Tennessee. Career never got to the heights that it was supposed to. You spend a first-round pick on a guy, you expect him to get you a 1,000-yard season in his career at some point. Dante Stallworth has never done that. He's a single. Also in that 2002 draft, Charles Grant. He was solid out of Georgia. Defensive end. And he played really good football for the Saints. Had a pretty good career, about 8, maybe 9 years. And was solid all the way through. Had some really good seasons where he got you double-digit sacks. You got to like Charles Grant. Solid defensive lineman. Defensive end / defensive tackle. He's a double. You look at 2003, and it's Jonathan Sullivan, defensive tackle out of Georgia. They got so much production out of Charles Grant, they went back to the Georgia store for more stuff at the defensive line. This time, it did not work. Jonathan Sullivan just didn't work. And so it's 1, 2, 3 strikes, you're out with Jonathan Sullivan. Yeah, that's a strikeout, if you didn't know where I was going with that. You look at 2004, Will Smith, defensive end out of Ohio State. He's the definition of solid. Never the most fanciest guy getting after the quarterback. He's really good in the run game. He's stout. He finds a way to get you 5 to 10 sacks just about every year. That's Will Smith in a nutshell. So in terms of being a solid player, it yields you a double. You look at 2005, Jamal Brown, offensive tackle out of Oklahoma. Again, at his peak, we're talking about a very good player, a Pro Bowl player. Don't know if he ever rose to the level of an all-pro player, but Jamal Brown was a really good tackle in this league before the injuries took effect. The hips started acting up, and he was never the same. Jamal Brown, solid in this league. We know what solid yields you. Of course, a double. You look at 2006, Reginald Bush. Reggie Bush. I thought this guy was going to revolutionize the running back position. I mean, he did it all. Now, I knew, and I never made the mistake of thinking he was an every down back. And I thought the Saints utilized him the best way that anyone has to this point. I actually think that Reggie Bush can be a guy that can get the ball 20 to 25 times. But you got to know how to get him the football. And he's proven that he can run the football. He did it in Miami. Got over 1,000 yards rushing. But I think when Reggie is at his best is when he's in space. And we all know that. Now, he wasn't the running back that maybe some people thought they were getting because he was drafted, 2nd or 3rd overall. But he's been solid. But you get him in space and he turns into one of the most dangerous players in the league. His short area quickness and burst, second to none in the league. His ability to change directions and stop on a dime, second to none in the league. So when you get him in space, he turns into a return man, which he's excelled at in this league. He's a dangerous guy. Reggie Bush is a double, but the talent says he's supposed to be more. Let's see what he does now that he's in Detroit. You look at 2007, Robert Meacham, receiver out of Tennessee. Man, the Saints seem to like their Tennessee receivers, even though they haven't produced for you in the past. I'm talking about Dante Stallworth. So you look at Robert Meacham in 2007 and you say to yourself, well, you went back to the Tennessee store. This guy can run. He's big. We're talking about a 6'2 receiver. He helps you stretch the field. And he's a big target. What not to like here? And he actually produced and played well for the New Orleans Saints. Problem is, the San Diego Chargers made the mistake of thinking that this guy was a #1 receiver, which he's not. And so he's a single right now. Because if he would have stayed with the Saints, he probably would be a double because the production would be a lot higher. This guy went to San Diego chasing the dollars and the title of #1 receiver. He found both, but in doing so, he also found out that, hey, I'm not as good as I thought I was, which everyone else knew except the San Diego Chargers. This guy's a single. You look at 2008, Cedric Ellis. Look, sometimes you got to be careful when you go to the USC store, and I'm talking about the University of Southern California. They have so many athletic guys and so many people that jump off the page at you, so many players that are really good in college, that you have to be careful because not all of them are going to be good. For example, linebacker. You look at a guy like Keith Rivers, and you say to yourself, man, this guy's a freak. 6'3", huge, can run, but he hasn't been anything in the league for the most part. You got to be careful. You look at receivers, and they do the same thing there. You know, they've had all the guys, the Kerry Colberts, the Mike Williams, and just were average receivers in the league. So you got to be careful. Here was another guy in another case of having to be careful, Cedric Ellis. He's been okay in the league at best. Never really stood out, never done anything. He's just been one of the guys on the defensive line. And that's not okay for a guy you draft in the first round. So Cedric Ellis is a single. You look at Malcolm Jenkins in 2009, drafted out of Ohio State to be a cornerback. They realized quickly, hey, we probably should move this guy to safety. They did. I thought it was a smart move. I actually like Malcolm Jenkins at safety. I think he's really good. I think that the talent around him isn't good enough. And sometimes he feels the need to try to make up for the lack of talent in the secondary for the Saints. He makes mistakes trying to overcompensate for other guys. Hence, he's a single. But I think he's actually better than that. But when this defense is as bad as it is, everyone does their job to make it as bad as it is. And so Malcolm Jenkins isn't immune to that. He's a single. You look at 2010, Patrick Robinson. Here's a guy that makes this secondary not as good as it's supposed to be. They draft this guy. They think they're getting a corner that's going to lock it down. And he's just been okay at best. Now, he's still young, still got room to grow. But when you get a corner in the first round, you're hoping that this guy can come in, start right away, and get it done. And Patrick Robinson hasn't been that guy that you could rely on week in and week out to hold it down in the secondary. And so he's a single. You look at 2011, Mark Ingram, running back out of Alabama. And these Alabama running backs seem to be taking over the first round of the draft. And he kind of started that trend. He's a really good running back. I like him. He's not the fastest or most explosive running back, but he's tough. He's physical. He gets the yards that are there and then some. However, he can't stay healthy. That was a problem at Alabama. It's been a problem so far in the league. And then he's with the Saints. And you know they have that running back by committee backfield where you just don't know who's going to get the snaps when. One week it's Pierre Thomas. Another week it's Chris Ivory. The next week it's Ingram. Then it's Darren Sproles. You just don't know what you're getting out of that Saints backfield. I think it's kind of slowed his progress to a degree. And the injuries as well. And so Mark Ingram, only a single in this league. You also look at 2011, another first round selection, Cameron Jordan, defensive end out of Cal. He's okay. I need to see more though, because the rookie season, disappointing. His sophomore year, 8 sacks. That's really good. That's a huge improvement over the 1 sack you got in his rookie campaign. So I like the growth from year 1 to year 2. Need to see more before I can say, hey, this guy's a double. Right now, he's a single. If he gives me another productive year, then I'd have to up this. But right now, the 8 sacks, I'm a little wary because like 4 of them came on Monday night versus the Philadelphia Eagles and that patchwork line where they just didn't block anybody. And he got like 3 or 4 sacks in that game. And so I'm kind of wary as to whether that was a good season or was this 2 or 3 good games by Cameron Jordan. Either way, he's a single right now. Want to see more before I elevate him to a double. When you look at 2012, there's no first round pick. That was lost by the bounty gate. NFL took away your first round and your second round selection. So no first round pick in 2012. And that's it for the New Orleans Saints in terms of picks in the last 13 years. You look at it, you add them all up, you average it out, it comes out to a single, but barely. It's basically a double. I'm a lenient guy. And so if you're almost a double, I might just bump you up. I'll call it a double for the Saints over the last 13 years of drafting. In the first round, you average up a double and a single, you split it down the middle, it comes out to a single and a half, which means it's a single. So at 15, being a New Orleans Saints, history says you're supposed to draft a single, and a solid single. But that's not okay. It's never okay to draft a single in the first round. And so if you are the New Orleans Saints at 15, you're switching from a 4-3 to a 3-4 defense with new defensive coordinator Rob Ryan. Look, every team in the league plays essentially a base defense, but they play multiple looks. You play some 3-4, you play some 4-3, you play some 4-6, all kinds of different looks. But their base is going to be 3-4. You got to get after the quarterback if you're going to play a 3-4 defense. They went and signed Butler from the Cowboys. Rob Ryan, very familiar with Victor Butler, coming from Dallas. And so they still need a guy that can get after the quarterback, though. They have Junior Gillette on their roster, but I don't think that Junior Gillette is a guy you want to start. He's a guy that you can slide in on third downs and occasionally sneak into the game in some sub packages to get extra pressure on the quarterback. But you need a guy that you can trust out on the edges that's athletically gifted, that can get after the quarterback. I think at 15, an outside linebacker is what you need at that pick. Whatever's there, you take it. I think that Barkevious Kiki Mingo will be there at 15. I think that's a great selection for you. He could go as high as 9 to the Jets. I think that the Jets will opt to go in a different direction. Maybe Jarvis Jones. Who knows? Whatever's there, you take it. If Jarvis Jones is there, why not take him? Whatever the case may be, you need a guy that can get to the quarterback off the edges. If you're going to play this defense, if the Saints are going to be relevant on defense, you got to get after the quarterback. Because if quarterbacks in this league have time and they're any good, they're going to shred you. And that's the problem with the Saints. Not enough pressure on the quarterback. The quarterback has time to survey the field against them. And their defense isn't good enough in the back half to stand up to not having pressure on the quarterback. You got to get pressure on the quarterback. So at 15, you got to get pressure. You got to get value at that pick. I think the best value at 15 is an outside linebacker that can get after the quarterback. So look, Barkevious Mingo, Jarvis Jones, or someone of that nature at that pick to satisfy one of your needs. If they're high on your board, you snag them. Look, you're the Saints. So if you want to go highest rated player on your board at 15, I have no problem with that. The need isn't as great as I want to make it out to be. You do need a rush outside linebacker if you're going to play 3-4. That's a known fact. But you also could use a defensive tackle, a nose tackle in a 3-4 as well. You need to be able to stop the run too. So there's several different directions you could go here. Whatever the case may be, take the best value. Don't go reaching for a position of need and go get a player that isn't great value at 15. Get the best player available on your board at 15. If that matches up with an outside linebacker like Barkevious Kiki Mingo or / defensive end, great. It fits a need and it's the best player available. That's a double whammy. That's what you're looking for. And if it doesn't and you see fit to draft a defensive tackle here, great. If it's a guy that's rated high on your board and it's great value, I have no problem with it. You need a tackle to replace the one that you lost in free agency? Sure, why not? At 15, you could take a tackle. I have no problems with that. Whatever you deem necessary at 15, do it. Just make sure it's a smart pick. I think, honestly, at the end of the day, it's going to be an outside linebacker. It's going to be someone that can get pressure on the quarterback because, after all, the Saints have to get pressure. Now, look, they got to protect Drew Brees. But I think that if Brown can stay healthy, you'll be okay at the tackle position. It's a big if, but we'll see. We will see. That's going to do it for the New Orleans Saints in the draft game.